Next, we're going to be looking at relations and domain and range. A relation is any pairing between two sets of numbers. One set is called the domain, one set is called the range. When you look at a relation, there's lots of ways to show it. You could show it in a table, in a list, in a mapping diagram, in a graph. Lots of different ways to show the same thing. But here's an example with a table. The domain values are the x's, or the inputs, or the independent values. The range is the y values, or the outputs, or the dependent values. Now, another way I could show this same relation, rather than a table, I could make a scatter plot by plotting each of these points. So plotting the point 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 5, 6, 6, 6, and 7, 9. So that would be the same relation shown as a scatter plot. Or I could also show you this same relation as a set. When you write it as a set, you would write each ordered pair in parentheses, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 6, and 7, 9. And then to make it a set, you take that list of ordered pairs and you put it in a set of curly brackets. Or one last way that you could represent this is you could show it as a mapping diagram. In a mapping diagram, you'll have one circle or curved type shape. I guess it's more elliptical than circular. And you would list your input values or your x's there. So our x values are 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then you'd have another one for your y values, which are 3, 5, 6, and 9. Notice how I didn't write the 6 twice. I just wrote it once for the y values. And then you draw arrows showing which ones go together. So the ordered pair 2, 3, you'd connect with an arrow. 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 6, so you just have two arrows going to the 6 rather than writing it twice, and then 7, 9. So those are all different ways to show that same data, but it doesn't change the domain and range. So in all of these questions, the domain is this list of x's. So if you were asked to find the domain, you would write your answer as a set, and you'd say that the domain is 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the range is just all of your y values, no matter how it would be represented. You could either get it from the graph, the table, the set notation, or the mapping diagram, just listing out all of the y's, and those are 3, 5, 6, 9. Again, notice we didn't write the 6 twice, just one time. Here's another graph. This graph is, rather than separate points, it's a lot of points connected. It's an infinite number of points. And if you're asked to find the domain and the range here, what we're looking for is an interval. So, to find the domain, remember that the domain is the x values. So you're going to look along the x-axis, and you're going to see the smallest value along the x-axis. That would be right here at -11. And then the largest value of the graph along the x-axis, which would be right here at 9. And everything in between there is included. So there's a few ways you could write this. In interval notation, you would write this as all of the numbers from -11 to 9, Or in set notation, you'd write it as all numbers x such that x is between -11 and 9. For the range, you're looking for the y values. So we look for the lowest point on our graph, and that's right here, which is at -1 along the y-axis, and the highest point on our graph, which is right here, which is at 3 on the y-axis. So the range as an interval would be -1 to 3, or all the values y such that y is between 1 and 3. This is a very similar example, but you'll notice this time that the endpoints are open circles rather than colored in circles. That's just going to change one very small piece of our notation. So if we go to look at our x's, smallest value along the x-axis is here at -6. Largest value is here at 7. But because those are open circles, they're not actually included. You're just getting really close to those points. So then the domain, rather than saying that it goes from -7 or -6 to 7 and including those points, we want to exclude them. In the last problem we did a bracket. In this problem we're going to do parentheses. So the bracket means that the endpoint was colored in, and the parentheses means that it was not. If you wanted to use interval notation, you'll remember that from the last one as well, where we said x was between the -6 and the 7. You just wouldn't put an equal sign as part of that inequality. Okay. To find the range, you're looking for your highest point and your lowest point. So here's your lowest point on the y-axis and your highest point on the y-axis. Notice that these points that I'm at, these are not open circles, so that means those values would be included. So the range would include all of those numbers from -5 to 5, and you would use the bracket instead of the parenthesis. Or if you were going to use the set notation, you would have the equal signs in your set. Now if you had like one of these circles colored in at the end, that would just change something to a bracket or a parenthesis. So like if I colored this one in, what that would do is it would change this -6 would get changed to a bracket because now it's included, and this -6 here would have an equal sign because it's now included.